I was born in a country sold to corporations. In the company of cattle or crash test dummies for the atrocities of the future. We're in the inner cities, black shoot ya, and out in the country of white snooze ya, and in between the boys in blue throw shots at you. A basket case would be an understatement. My government's an underground racist haven. Elected officials erect for those who pay them, and we're stuck getting fucked as a down payment for colonial expansion. It's hard to stomach, ain't it? What's new under the sun? This has already been done. We should turn a blind eye like Odin to preserve a country for old men, but omens come to those who know from whence they came. So come with me to the blood-red sea where the slaves are bobbing for sharks to feed, where the natives lost their hand and feet to commemorate a Thanksgiving feast, where Chinamen came from opium dens politically sponsored by English pens to America to be barred entrance or strapped with dynamite like Al-Qaeda agents to terraform this mighty nation, where feminists marched for women's rights and kept the sisters out of sight, where black sheep weren't afraid to fight, where Malcolm and Martin lost their lives as scapegoats, and the Pope watched from his steeple and said nothing about one human people created by God, but instead gave a silent nod to Holocaust and genocides lost in the bush tales of white men out on safari. I know that's a little far from home, but it feels just as close. So don't ask me why I won't stand and salute a flag that to most means devastation and manipulation, the preamble to apartheid segregation, public governments across South American nations, where brown Haitians hate brown Jamaicans, and white Spaniards still capitalize daily, where they build palaces for sporting events, left to dilapidate while the poor are left behind the fence of so-called fate, where the mud cakes are children's treats, and public governments let politicians compete, and federal agencies move drugs to the American streets, and Americans vacation and kick up their feet, bask and tan in the heat. But this ain't the scene across the screens on CNN or BET, or Tyler Perry reruns on TV. The police swore to protect and serve, but they showed they don't care if they take you in breathing or bleeding. And the courts don't care for justice, just order without reason. You ask for my allegiance, you demand my obedience. I was told that America had crumbled and fallen. But being black in America, being the only nigger in your area takes my breath away. Like willow trees and twisted knots. As you hide under the cover of tales of terrorist plots, I'd like to remind you that when the Mayflower hit the dock, when the Pilgrims planted plots and grew crops of strange fruit, this land became more red as the indigenous sat and bled, as old Jim Crow was fed on the dead black bodies bobbing for freedom. Ever since the Mayflower hit the dock, ever since the Pilgrims planted plots and reservations became destinations for entire civilizations, ever since faggots were bound and burned, ever since Birmingham churches lit the night like torches, I've seen every revolutionary figure killed and disfigured by the bias of history. Don't get me started on the dear-hearted institution of slavery and patriarchy. Are you seriously telling me this nation has never been more frightening, when in the blackest nights the demons came and threw the Japanese in prison chains, burned and bombed the Chinese out of house and name, and the fame of the great American eagle spread its wings over the beaten brown people of the lower half of the continent? Fuck your privilege, fuck your confidence, check your character, get a black friend. Because if you tell me that this nation has never been more dangerous, when pestilence killed 90% of indigenous Americans, when Emmett Till's mother is still waiting patient for his appearance, when Trayvon was ghosted on the basis of appearance, I will have one question: where is your courage? Bootstraps didn't pull your people up to a position of privilege. Boot camps for indigenous re-education did this. Straps snapped on black backs gifted modern America to multitudes of children of the conscripted, concubines and slaves whose sorrow was made mythic. Spirituals turned into cryptic signs of the time, sorrow sold in harmonized lines for the people to buy, pistols aimed at the side of a primitive black mind, not broken, just misguided, then led down the barrel of a chamber he died in asphalt blacker than his ancestral heritage. Homeboy has turned into a term of sacrilege, because we'll clap and dap a nigga over some rockin' heady and kill a nigga over some shoes, that's petty. So I'm actually projecting from this mortal coil to the top of Mount Zion. Even though I'm only mortal, I might find for myself in silence the wisdom to listen to the suffering of the sub-Saharan African children, Avalokiteshvara. Woo!